Hi, everybody. I'm Steph Kent. I'm coming to you from rural Massachusetts, across the pond in the United States. The scene for this Sitting with Strange intercultural communication and ethics research is a simultaneously interpreted focus group. The members are deaf participants using American Sign Language, hearing participants using spoken English, very special interpreters for our first session, special because they are balanced bilinguals, equally fluent in American Sign Language and English, which isn't usually the case, often isn't the case, and student observers, the students who are being trained to become professional sign language interpreters. An assumption we make about communication is that it's the receiver who decides the meaning. As much as we intend to be clear, receivers are always going to decide what they think we mean. A corollary to that is that guides the action. Receivers' action or inaction, responsiveness or non-responsiveness, feeds what meaningfulness comes about in a group. So we have deaf people who rely on their vision, hearing people who tend to rely on their ears, on sound, and are associated from the deaf perspective with privilege. It's the oppression known as audism, which stems from audiology. And interpreters who are navigating this difference between the medium of sound and the medium of light, of vision. So we're dealing with two mediums and their respective modes. Now, sound is sequential. It takes longer for sound waves to travel than for light waves to travel. Our sentences are linear, words come after words. Our turn taking is just that. There's a temporal sequence. Sight, however, is simultaneous. So when we're in interpreted interaction, there's this extrasensory load where suddenly hearing people have to use their eyes in a way that they're not accustomed to, because meaningful communication comes through sound, but now something is happening visually also. And the result of that confusion, or maybe not its direct result, but coming along with that, is maybe a lessened engagement from the deaf perspective to those hearing people who are not connecting necessarily in a direct way. There's a lot of research and discourse in the field about this phenomenon, that the dynamics tend to be centered between hearing participants and the interpreter, or deaf participants and the interpreter, rather than between the deaf participants and the hearing participants. So our hypothesis for this research is that if we create the ideal conditions, we can actually look at those dynamics, observe them, and reflect on what typically happens, and maybe move to something else. So before the first focus group, the students met with the interpreters, and this excerpt coming up in video is from that conversation. It's in American Sign Language, so there's no audio. It has been captioned so you can read the conversation. So before one can break the mold and change anybody's perspective, you have to know what's in the mold to begin with. That's what we're looking at. So the students made some observations. They had planned to make observations in advance, And this is an example from one of them. There's quite a range of different behaviors that students were looking for, including non-manual markers, which are linguistic features of American Sign Language, and also the different kinds of alignments that happen between deaf people and hearing people, deaf people and the interpreter and hearing people. And there were a lot of different observations, including more interactivity among the deaf participants than the hearing participants, and a confusion around whether the word Persian meant passion, what was misheard with an accent as passion. And there was a bit of, how do we correct this ordinary misunderstanding? And there was a range of responses to, what do you do when there's an ordinary misunderstanding and interpreted interaction? And differences in participation, how many turns were taken, how much was shared during a turn. Phatic communication was quite noticeably different, with deaf people back channeling quite a lot with each other, and the interpreters and the hearing group much less so. Overall, the action, the communication, was more uncoordinated than coordinated, although we had a robust conversation. One piece of feedback, because most of the members of the focus group were people of color, Black, Indigenous, Middle Eastern, quite a range of identities, was the impact on a Puerto Rican Latina woman in the program who reflected on the power of representation. It's not new information, but it was nice to get this validation that it really does make a difference if we're trying to diversify the field, who it is that we hold up as exemplars and examples and good role models. So I've just given you a taste of the students' perspective from the very first session. We're also collecting observations and reflections from all of the deaf participants, the hearing participants, and the interpreters. So we'll be triangulating those with each other over the course of the next sessions. By the time you see this, we'll be just about done, and there might be some summaries available on our website, which looks like this. Thank you very much. We hope to generate something interesting and useful for all of us who care about maintaining diversity and solving our common problems.